Hi, it's Courtney from CM Storytelling, back for part 2 of my conversation with Alison McNeil, the founder and chief creative officer of McNeil Creative Enterprises, or MCE. In part 1 of our conversation, we talked a lot about COVID-19 and dealing with the emotional trauma and stress and just the weight of everything that everyone's been going through, and how to acknowledge that and be honest with that with ourselves as entrepreneurs and the folks that we work with. In part 2, we continue that conversation, as well as talk about trusting your voice, showing up with your values in your work, and really appreciating stillness. So enjoy part 2 of this conversation, and leave me a comment and let me know what you took away from it. I took so many things, so I would love to know what you took away from it. Now here's part 2 of my story talk with Alison.
I want to kind of follow up on when you're talking about how you communicate with your clients, and just starting with this place of let's just kind of like acknowledge what's happening, and let's not try to move so fast. Building that, one of the things that I try to do through CM storytelling is really promote authentic communications and building relationships through authentic communications and authentic storytelling. And I'm curious to know, how did you get to that place where you were able to just sort of have that kind of authentic communications with the folks that you work with? Was there an aha moment that you had, or is it just that's just kind of how you are naturally, or how did you get to that place?
Well, I think it was a combination of a couple of things. By virtue of working in evaluation, originally doing this work in education and eventually moving over to the arts, you're naturally curious about what's happening. And unfortunately in evaluation, and for most fields, evaluation appears to be, oh no, you're gonna tell the grant maker on us. You're gonna be the person that gets us in trouble for not doing our work right.
Right.
So, and what does that even mean, to do it right? But that is the natural response when they hear that evaluators are in the building, if you will. It's like
Right.
Auditors, evaluators, they all fall into, oh Lord, don't judge me. And so when I knew and experienced how hesitant people were with the fact that I was even there, not even knowing me in some cases, I knew that it was important for me to create an environment where we both believed that this work was not judgment, but an opportunity for reflection. And so I think, I remember when I did it more in the arts, I had a natural, even the way that I talked about it evolved. One, because I'm an artist too, a dancer, and I know that most artists are very passionate about whatever it is that they're creating. And so for you to come in and say whatever it is you're saying, even if it's helpful, it's like, hold up. So it was almost like, how can I meet people where they are, honoring whatever they've done, but also hearing where they want to go. And so that's how I started to think about, well, what does it take to do that? How do you get to that point? And so I just thought about my own internal journey. Like, what is important for me? Like, if I say I want to change, or if I say I want to do something different, or if I say I want to just see how things are going, I started to think about what is required in order to do that. And so that's how my values that I lived naturally but hadn't named came to be for my company, and how I knew that in order to work with me, whoever I worked with had to also believe that would be a helpful part of the process. And so then it kind of shifted who even came my way. Because I don't know what people say about me when I'm not there, but I do know what they say after we've worked together, which is why, I put those testimonials on my site. And most of it is like, she's personable, she has the skill set to get you there, but she hears you or something. It's always like they feel heard, challenged, but, you know, they got to wherever they wanted to get to. And so in my mind, whoever is out there referring me, they're like, you know, don't work with Alison if you're not ready to X, Y, Z. So by the time they come to me, and that doesn't mean that everybody that comes to me, we work together for a variety of reasons. But the ones that do, we both honor and acknowledge that those values could have some, could factor into our ability to be successful with our project. So, yeah.
It sounds to me like you've been able to develop a real trust in your own voice. And I think that's so important, especially now when we are having to adapt and change and shift. And, you know, you could second guess yourself out of anything. But we're in a time now where you've really got to, you know, at least try and at least, you know, trust your gut, trust your instincts. And I'm curious to know what you think about trusting yourself and trusting your voice, you know, in the midst of all of this that's going on.
Oh my gosh, Courtney, I just have to say my therapist would be so excited that you have raised that about me, like trusting your voice, trusting your gut, because that has been a large part of my journey through therapy, like through my own, you know, and I want to give credit to therapy too. And just, I always say my work has made me a better person individually, because what I do through my projects, I'm literally talking to people about the same issue, but they have very different interpretations of what's happened. And it's almost like my role is to like put the pieces of the puzzle together, acknowledging that all perspectives are valid, and how do we take what we know and move to the next phase. And that helped me, one, understand even my own interpersonal relationships. Like there is a reason why this person feels the way that they feel.
Yeah.
And offer them compassion for, you know, how they're operating. Oftentimes because it has nothing to do with me, but that's something I learned along the way. It definitely wasn't something that was clear for me until the last probably 2.5 years. And so when I got clearer about how to distinguish what was about me and what wasn't about me, it made it much easier for me to see things objectively. And as an evaluator, that's what you're not supposed to be biased on anything. Like I could be doing an interview with someone and they're saying something that I'm like, what? I cannot believe she said, but that's their perspective. So I'm like, okay.
Right.
Or like hear them say whatever they're saying. And I'm like, right on. Like, but the same sort of response is what they get from me, because it does no service to the work to be biased in any way. And so my ability to do that has helped me do the work better. But then also, conversely, and mostly in the last, like I said, 6 to 8 months, have helped me hone in on my ability to be able to trust myself. The old me, even 5 years ago when I started my company, probably would have taken many things that happened last year very differently. I had a client who hired, and this wasn't even under MCE, I was working with another company that I work with, hired me to do a program evaluation, rooted in the goals of what they were aiming to do. Unfortunately, they were not happy with the findings. And even though they reviewed every set of interview protocols and all the things that we asked, what came back to them was not what they were willing to hear, nor was it framed in a way that made them look completely like the victor, if you will. And so what they asked, I was a project lead on this effort. What they asked of me in that moment was a test of my own integrity. And I was like, so this is when I would say that project was when I knew that I could trust myself, because I just was like, I can't break integrity so that you can see the story that makes sense for you. And it was so hard for me to do because there were a lot of quote unquote power players involved in this project. And, it could make or break my entire career because people talk like this is just the nature of all business. And yet I was like, my commitment is to doing those intentions that I mentioned earlier. And if I do that, if I do what I'm asked to do in this moment, will I be living my intentions? And I had to believe that in deciding to tell the truth as it came back from the stakeholders, I couldn't change. And so in therapy, we worked a little bit around that. Like, okay, you've decided this and you believe it's right. And so you have to just trust that, all things come together for the greater good. And even if the message becomes, you can't get what you want, like if you're going to hire Alison, then you have to know that whatever comes from the work will come and you guys can work together to figure out what you want to do next. But you're not necessarily going to be able to think that she's just going to change it because you say to change it. I had to trust that I was okay with that message, even knowing that some people won't be down for that. And it was a hard lesson. And yet in the new year, 2 or 3 people reached out for new work. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I was like, nothing's promised in any field. And in this field in particular, I think creative industries, things are so fleeting. Like one day you might be the hot girl, the next day you might not be. And so you have to center yourself and recognize that whatever's happening is not always about you. Like me deciding to not shift what the findings said was true to the research, but the agenda or the motive for that project required a different sort of circumstances. And that, I understand the politics of it. I feel like I'm getting really deep, but I'm just saying that because it was the moment that I realized that I could trust my intuition. And even if that meant, I don't know what happens to me in this field.
Yeah.
And I think that's why when COVID-19 started, I was like, look, if I have gone through all of the things, it'll be okay.
What lesson do you think that you will take out of this, even beyond this pandemic?
That there is beauty in stillness and being able to sit with all that you are and identifying what's a realistic way for you to show up in moments like this. Like I still have this idea for a course in the back of my mind, and yet I know I had to take the time to be still first. Mm-hmm. And just offering myself grace for that. Like it's okay that I couldn't jump in with the idea that I rolled out the next week. Like it's fine. I listened to there's this woman named Shanti Das. Have you heard of her?
I haven't, no.
Shanti Das is I guess she was a music executive for many, many years, but because of her own life experience, started this practice called Silence the Shame. Maybe you can reach out to her, I don't know. And so she did this IG story yesterday, I think it was, with D Nice, talking about mental health and wellness in this moment and how important it is to stay centered and, do what you got to do, but also don't work yourself to the bone. And he talked about his journey before club quarantine and how mindful he was in creating the first 3 weeks, creating the space without all the excess noise from all the commercial places that we're trying to get in.
Right.
The big thing. It was a really good talk. I don't know if it's still on her IG live story. Maybe it's on her YouTube channel, but it's just this. And he talked a little bit about stillness too. And I think because he, before club quarantine, was on the go all the time, all these DJ parties all over the place. And he was saying how, and I was like, that's right, me too. I mean, not like I'm nice, but like this notion of when you have no other thing to do but to sit still, you're forced to be with yourself and what happens in those moments. So I know that's a long way to answer your question, but offer myself grace, recognize that it will come, and I'll be all right.